Welcome back to the Social Litmus Test, where we put things to the test so you don't have to. I'm Pete.
And I'm Blake.
Welcome back, guys. Today, we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to our hearts, your hearts, whether or not you know it. It's mind-altering substances. And a mind-altering substance, to those of you at home, is anything, quite literally anything, that you ingest to change your consciousness. Now, Blake, let's talk about the number one mind-altering substance.
Do you want to talk about it, or do you want to...
He's dead serious about his mind-altering substance. That's a cup of Java. Joe.
Easy one.
Coffee. Cafe. Depends on what you want to call it. But it's something that almost everyone, you included, ingest to get their day started.
Oh, yeah. And it's not a... Obviously, it's not a very hard-hitting one for a lot of people, but especially because they create a pretty big tolerance to it. Mm-hmm. But it's the easiest one for us to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot more than just coffee. Mm-hmm. But that's an easy one. But anything else?
But it's quite a few. It's quite a few. Nicotine, alcohol, and those other ones that the government's a little bit more angry about.
Yeah.
But with that being said, this is going to be the topic we're going to be discussing today because I feel like there's a lot to talk about, and we're going to dive into that. But before we do, Blake,
yes,
what's going to be the first topic that we're going to get into regarding this subject?
Well, we have several different topics, if you will. Mm-hmm. The first one, I'm already forgetting the outline. But I'm okay with it.
It happens. Yeah. It happens. So we tried to do outlines before shooting these things.
Yes.
And it's still work in progress. Still working out
now
the
it's
kinks.
messing me up more than just free flowing.
Right? I think that when you try and have structure, you end up having a house of cards. You think you got it, but just one soft breeze and it's gone. So I think what we really wanted to talk about It was coffee, nicotine, alcohol, and
just going over examples of what we
exactly. I think that we were talking in the past that Blake has this hankering for his vape juice. I call it vape juice.
Yep, I don't even vape it. I just drink it.
He just when I first got to him, he was hitting his veins. He was like, it goes in like this, right? And it's something. Anything that you need to start your day. I've been on this kick of being completely and utterly sober for these last couple of weeks that I've broken my foot. We forgot to do the weekly check-in with the broken foot.
How's Chuck the boot?
Chuck the boot, I'm looking at him every day, and it's like Castaway, like Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I thought he was my friend, but at this point, I'm ready to take the leg, not even the foot, just the leg, just right at the groin level.
I think it's easier that way.
I said if I needed surgery, if I go back to the orthopedist, and he goes, listen, we need surgery, I'm going to tell him the only surgery we're having is for you to take that thing off, and I want a bionic leg. I want to be able...
We can rebuild him.
Right? I feel like in 2023, we have the technology.
Yeah.
If they had
we can make them faster.
If
we
they
can make them stronger.
Right? What year did that come out?
Can we make them smarter? I don't think so.
I don't think so. You could make the toes
faster and stronger for sure.
Yes.
Smarter, I don't know.
And I will probably be able to play basketball better than I did beforehand.
Yes.
I think that's actually why I weakened the structure, the integrity of my foot, is because I was balling up so hard.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And
that's completely it, obviously.
I was halfway telling Nikki, I was like, I'm going to try and dunk. And she's like, you're 5'8", bro. Like, I like to say I'm 5'9" when I wake up. But by the end of the day shrinks me down to 5'8".
So,
yes.
Going off of your foot.
Yes.
What mind-altering substances did they give to you, if any, for your foot?
They did not even ask me if I wanted anything for it. I was just like, they were like, are you in pain? I was like,
doctors in the modern age now.
Well,
they're like, that sucks.
They're like, yeah, it hurts.
It's probably better for the whole population that they are that way. But man, it sucks when you're like, no, like I really need something. But
well, you know what? I deal with a lot of patients myself that are seeking, so I try not to because they see
obviously
they see a 30-year-old guy, they're like, all right, what are you trying to get out of us? Trying to get the good stuff.
I still remember when I was I was just doing clinicals, and a guy comes into the ER and he listed all of the things that he was allergic to, which were non-narcotics.
Interesting.
And then doctor just comes in and just looks at him. He's like, so you're allergic to all non-narcotics, but you're not allergic to narcotics? And the guy was like, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
you're like, get out.
but that's what it's become. It's like, and I don't want to be typecast as that because I'm not, you know. And to be honest with you, that's how, you know, it can start off very innocently, and then it can divulge into something, you know, far more insidious than you had previously thought it to be. But you know, I will tell you, ibuprofen's not doing anything for that. I took it for the first couple of days, not enough, you know. But I also took it upon myself to say, you know what, if this is going to be my day to day, every day, just waking up and just kind of staring at the ceiling, just looking for a purpose, I said I want to try and do this as myself, you know, and you really don't know who you are until you've been just bone dry sober for X amount of time.
Right.
So even I remember, man, when I was working before the injury happened, I was consuming so much caffeine in a given day that if I didn't have X amount, I would have such a headache. I would feel foggy. I would feel just like...
But, you know, it's interesting because there's millions of Americans out there that have that same thing.
Yeah.
Like I thankfully I do need a little bit of caffeine, but that's I just basically need like one thing of caffeine, one beverage of caffeine, and then I'm pretty much set. I'm drinking a second one right now because I just had a very, very long day at work, but you know,
I could tell.
It is what it is. And he
had a certain annoyance when he saw me today.
Thankfully, I have a very light headache if I don't have caffeine. But go ahead.
Mine was much worse than a light headache. It was just like, in my job too, you got to be very patient. And when, like, I've had patients in the morning tell me, like, when I'm really jazzed up, and a lot of our work happens early in the morning. I got to assess the patient. I got to see what they're looking like. I got to, you know, do my once over of them so that I know what the other 11 hours of the day is going to be like.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of the patients are just waking up. They're near 100 years old, and they're just not. They didn't have their cup of coffee.
Yeah.
and I'm coming in laying jokes, and they're just staring at me, and they're just like, "I hate you. Stop talking." And I've even had patients to tell me to calm down, just like to cool
That's
it.
funny.
And I look at him like, do you want the guy in charge of your heart beating and your lungs puffing to be slow? You know what I'm trying to say? I personally would want somebody a little bit with some jazz on them.
Yeah, some jazz in their step.
That's what I'm saying. So yes, I got to tell you, like, even today, I felt a little sluggish. I wanted to do some stuff. I wanted to I wanted to get to writing, Blake. I've been feeling a little creative recently.
Yep.
And I have a couple of good ideas in my head about what to write, and you know, just to get some energy out, I guess. Yeah. And I found myself a little creatively void, and I was like, I just don't got it in me, you know. And I thought about having a like a liquid IV, for example, like having that because it's got some electrolytes in it. I was like, oh, I feel better. It's not a cup of coffee. The problem is the coffee that we recently got is like whole bean, like punch you in the chest, like just shaking coffee, and I don't need that now, especially being off the stuff for so long. Yeah. So I thought about it. And I wrestled with it, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. And I even thought about taking some before I came here. And I said, you know what, I got to push through it. And I hope I give you guys the best version of myself, sober Pete. I don't know him, and I hope you get to know him with me at the same time. So yes, coffee, caffeine, it is a drug, guys. Whether or not you want to agree to it, I got some folks, some family that think that it's not. You're wrong. Just objectively, you're wrong. And
if you don't think it's a drug, and let's say you take it often, try not using it for 2 weeks. Yes. Then drink, like, nothing crazy, but like a 12-ounce Red Bull. Mm-hmm. See what happens. Oh, dude. It's pretty insane. Like, you're like, whoa, that's caffeine? You're like, yes, you've been doing that this whole time. And like, we're all willing, like, hopefully we're all willingly understanding the effects. Like I do, because I drink it every single day. Yeah. But like, hopefully people know that, but some people don't, and they're like, "Oh, coffee's good. I like the taste, and it makes me feel peppy." And I'm like, "No, like you don't. Like, yes,
it makes people less annoying around me, and I just have more patience."
But you know, the thing is that the long-term effects of having a decent amount of caffeine in your system, from all sorts of studies, shows that it's not necessarily damaging to our health, unless you take a high dosage for a really long time, or you take an extremely high dosage which obviously is bad. Everything in moderation, obviously.
That's the number one key of this podcast is at the end of the day, you need
everything in moderation.
Yeah,
you can take a tiny bit of heroin and you'll be completely fine.
The jury's still out on that one, all right?
I hope everyone takes a little bit, understands sarcasm.
Yes. No, I thought it was just take a little bit of heroin. No, it's a lot of sarcasm.
Yes.
It's sometimes I don't even know when he's being sarcastic anymore at this point.
I don't even know sometimes myself.
Right? I mean,
I thought people were going to do that. I'm just kidding.
I really hope not, man.
No, but yeah, everything in moderation. So, when people think that if you take an extremely high amount of caffeine over time, it's going to cause different heart problems actually.
Yeah.
But it's not just caffeine. We got what other drugs we got here?
I think number 2 on the list is nicotine.
Yeah.
I think that nicotine is another stimulant, that helps you start your day, and you have more patience for things once you have that little hit of it.
Is it true that nicotine and caffeine have the same psychological effect? I've heard that many times, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're both stimulants. They both make your heart race. They both, act on your sympathetic nervous system.
Right.
So in that regard, for sure. And I think the fact that it's so readily available, that is the closest analog. And there's no rule. Like with alcohol, for example, it's like we've made some rules as a culture, as a society. That's like, all right, if you're having whiskey at 9 a.m., that's a significant problem.
Yeah.
But if you're having a cigarette at 9 a.m., if you're having a cup of coffee, if you're having 2 of them at the same time on your toilet, somebody somewhere is doing the same exact thing, and they think that it's the best way to start their day. I personally think that it's the worst possible combination, but it helps you go to the bathroom, and that's why people like it first thing in the morning, Blake.
Apparently, though, that only affects like a certain part of the population.
Really?
Not 100% of people have to defecate immediately after drinking coffee.
That's incredible to me.
No, it's not like I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but it's like it's less than you think. It's not 100%.
Dude, it's like Drano. It's like literally Drano.
But some people are just like, okay, cool, and then they just walk on along their way.
God bless those people.
Yes.
I'm pretty sensitive to caffeine, I will say, but I feel like it washes out pretty quickly.
I love it,
and getting back to nicotine, I personally, at one point in my life, I actually did regularly smoke cigarettes. I was in college. I thought it was cool. Started smoking cigarettes.
Did you wear a leather jacket too?
I did. It was pleather. It was pleather.
Cool.
I mean, I just couldn't pull it off.
Just a poser.
I couldn't pull it off though. I didn't have the motorcycle.
Yeah. I just walk around town, just going.
Just snapping, looking for a fight.
Yeah.
You have a switchblade. You have a switchblade that's also a comb.
In my, my
Yes,
shirt.
Yes.
That's really the only way.
And then you went to fight the Jets.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm glad you knew exactly.
I knew exactly what you were saying. I just I recently saw a meme about it, but I knew before that. West Side Story, great play. But yeah, man, nicotine, it's something that, I personally, I had some trouble getting off of it. I really did myself. It started off as a social thing. Yeah. And that's what a lot of these things do. Start off as a social thing, and it turned for me into a habituality in my life.
Yeah.
And to the point where I was pissing off the people around me because it's like, Pete's coming again. He's going to be smoking some cigarettes. And it actually took me getting a nasty pneumonia, dude. I got
you're basically forced to get off of it.
Right? It was like, all right, well, I guess I'm stopping. I actually developed an atypical pneumonia while I was in my second semester at college. And to the point where I went to the infirmary, and the doctor, again, who was like, I need you to understand how bottom tier these doctors in university infirmaries are. Yeah. Strictly for undergrad, they just give out broad spectrum antibiotics, just like nice. Hey, you came in with a sneeze, take this, and he actually had to call in people that actually knew what they were doing, and he called in 6 different people, and they were like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. I had a rash all over my body that was subdermal, so meaning I couldn't itch at it. It was just underneath the first layer of my skin, so you could see it, but itching it did nothing. So really atypical. It was caused by the adenovirus. I later came to find out months later, but it put me on my butt, dude, for 2 months. I was out of school.
But at least you stopped smoking.
That's what I literally looked up into the sky, and I was like, whatever's out there, just take this away from me. I'll never touch a cigarette again. And that's how moments of weakness. You look up to the sky, and you hope they get help.
That's how
the sky people
found Jesus.
That's I would say, let's say Jesus. Whatever entity is up there. But yes, I stopped smoking cigarettes, and I was thankful for that, and ironically knew nothing about my profession that I ended up getting into.
Funny.
But I tell people that story anecdotally because I know how much it sucks. I really understand how much it sucks and how readily available it was even in the early 2010s. And thank goodness now society has deemed it even more of a demon than it was. And even though we're getting into vape carts, and Blake, tell us about vape carts, because I know that you have a little
cartridges. Well, just any vape in general.
Just any vape juice.
So I mean, so cigarettes are extremely bad. They do have a lot of carcinogens, but that's just basically from smoke, just in general.
Yeah, any combustion.
Smoke, anything really. So any smoke you inhale is technically going to be a carcinogen, pretty much right off the bat. Yeah. However, vaping doesn't really have as much of a scientific study behind it, but the good thing is that you're not inhaling smoke anymore. So you're inhaling vapor. Now that vapor is technically just straight up vegetable oil, so I within the first episode already outed myself as someone who hates vegetable oil, yet I am smoking it.
It's a contradiction,
right? So nobody contradicted themselves ever, I'm pretty sure, in human history, right?
Never,
right?
never,
just me.
Never. Hypocrite bastard.
But no. So it's not good, but it's definitely better than smoking, I believe. I'm sure there's going to be more studies going on. There's been a lot of weird, wacky studies where they're like, we found formaldehyde in the vape, and it's like, no, that's because you held the fire gun for 46 seconds and then you burned the metal, which is going to, that's obviously going to change
the composition of what
that's
comes
not
out.
Normal vaping.
But can I ask you though, where do you source it from? Like, do you order it like on black market, like vapejuice.com?
Basically,
xvapejuice.com.
It's
but how do you feel about not knowing the source of this juice that you're inhaling every day? Like, that's what
I guess it's just so easy to look at it and see that it truly is just straight up vegetable oil. That now there's been what you're talking about is there's been a few batches before where they put vitamin K.
Vitamin K.
Yeah,
I've heard of both.
They put something that they were not supposed to put into it, and I don't know if it was a mistake or if it was someone who just truly did not know that they could mix certain parts with certain things, and then they released it, and then it messed up a lot of people, and then that actually gave them popcorn lung, which is pretty much what people always immediately direct any vapor to. They're like, oh, it's going to give you popcorn lung. It's like, that's if it's a really bad juice that they're smoking or vaping. So in all, I think vaping is just better for someone's health, but it's obviously not good because there's still a lot of studies. But we're going to go into the next thing anyways, which is alcohol.
Sure.
On top of that, we got other things like
the social and
cultural acceptance and everything. So we're going to pause it real quick.
Be right back.
So the other things that we were going to get into were just more substances, because there's a lot more than just nicotine, alcohol, and caffeine. There's also the illegal drugs, and just kind of starting off with alcohol. Obviously, there's an entire department dedicated to alcohol and tobacco.
Yes.
Not that that's good or bad.
Not that it does anything.
Yeah.
But yes.
Well, different topic.
But that's another cast.
Yeah. But alcohol itself causes crazy like mutations when it comes to pregnancies. I mean, this is just like crazy stuff. But alcohol has been around for longer than history, longer than recorded history.
Yeah, as long as people, Homo sapiens, have been
sure
Homo sapieing.
I think the first recorded alcohol that we know of is from the Egyptians. They used to mix a whole bunch of fermented yeast and then into alcohol, and then they basically have that alcohol. They would actually put it inside of their slaves' food, so it's kind of like a bready mixture mead, if you will.
Okay.
And so they realized that it actually helped them kind of get through the day.
The morale was a little.
Yeah, kind of get
They're
through
like,
the
I like getting
well,
whipped.
Yeah.
It's not too bad now. Let's build these pyramids.
Yeah. Not so hard when you're like a little looser the entire time.
Right?
So that's interesting. That
Now that's frowned upon to get drunk at work.
Yeah.
Although I think they were onto something. Just
were
not
definitely
too much. Just a beer too.
Yeah.
Your productivity would probably increase for the first like couple hours.
But just kind of going back to other drugs too. We have THC, obviously,
Yes.
huge one. So do you want
Yes.
to expand on that at all? Or?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that I think that we were talking about THC prohibition.
Yeah.
We were talking about marijuana being outlawed, I think, in 1937.
Yeah.
They said it was originally brought to the States via Mexican immigrants, I want to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
That's where it originated in America.
At least that's what the yellow journalism told us. So
Yes, that's what the history books.
We'll give them that one because I think that's right.
Right. I mean, that's why it's marijuana.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
it's got that
Yep.
little ethnic twang to it.
Yep.
But it started off back in the day. The percentages of THC even in that skunk weed was like I don't know 1%.
Yeah.
Now they're doing. I mean, the percentages you see if you go to like a dispensary out west, the numbers that you see, it's like 98% THC. It's like.
Yeah.
It just you don't want to die. You can't die from it, but it could
zonk you.
It could feel like you are dying in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that now I think THC is like now that they've kind of loosened the purse strings on it and they see that they can monetize it.
Yeah.
Even the taxes that they hit you with in dispensaries out west, it's like 30%.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, God bless. Like if you're gonna tax people, tax them on things that they're gonna enjoy. But the percentage of how concentrated it is now is nowhere near what it was.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, in very, very high doses, if you take like a tincture, for example, you can put it into anything. You can put it into, they have now like weed beer. They have weed beer. They have weed water.
Interesting.
They have weed tinctures. They have edibles, obviously. The good old-fashioned nuggets that you crush up and roll into whatever you want.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy to me how the field has evolved and exploded. And, like even early 2000s, trying to find whatever, like X amount, like a gram of pot, a nugget.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to get into, like Tom Segura does a really great stand-up on it. He's like, can't wait to tell my kids about, like, getting pot. And it's like, it's like, what do you mean, Tom? And it's like, we used to almost die to get pot, for like one joint. And it's like, what do you mean? What'd you do? It's like, we used to get into in the back of a stranger's car.
Yep.
In an unmarked location. We would drive somewhere else around the block. This is before cell phones.
Yeah.
You would just get in there and you would hope that he would return you.
Yeah.
And if you were lucky, he did. You exchanged $20. You got your little sack. You went back and you blew some funny cigarettes with your friends.
Yep.
And now it's crazy. You can go into the store, shopping for anything, and it's like, I would like that one. And then you have the bud tenders behind the the wall, and they're just like, well, this one's good for sleeping. This one's good for hunger. This one's good for anxiety. And it's just like you've got all of these.
Do you think that the people who are like working like behind that counter, do you think that they like to be called drug dealers?
I think it's frowned upon.
Like, do they think they're like drug dealer is their actual job?
I mean,
name?
you could say the same about a barista, right?
True.
Right? Starbucks.
True.
You know what I mean? So,
I do drugs.
Right? So I just think that it's just really kind of crazy how everything has evolved. And personally, I do think that that pot has its pros in society. It really can help certain populations. For example, veterans of war.
Yeah.
I know, they're very quick to throw antidepressants on them, anti-psych meds. And when you start messing with people's brain chemistry pharmaceutically like that, I feel like what I've seen and what I've heard and read about is that these people end up having, it might help in the moment, but then long-term, 6 months, a year down the road,
taking that drug
is not going to help them get to where they need to go. And listen, man, if that's your drug of choice and it helps you, function, and because you have severe anxiety, depression, whatever, and you've seen people get exploded in front of you, please, by all means, do it. But do it safely. That's the number one thing. Don't make it your whole personality. I'm
Don't ruin it for the rest of us.
That's another thing too. You know, that's how
That's how it all started.
Like, right, there was like a marijuana, a reefer madness.
Yeah, reefer madness.
You know, it's like I smoked one joint and I killed a man.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
to
like,
be fair, they obviously, I don't think they were really seeing any like weird effect. And then they're like, oh, we gotta legalize it. I'm pretty sure that was more money.
yes.
Maybe other products that were not being like sold, like other paper products that are not being
Well,
sold.
it was hemp.
It
was hemp, right?
So they wanted to
That's the
basically ban
history.
hemp, and the only way to ban hemp is to try to make marijuana be the evil guy.
Yes.
And like, to be fair, like, in my opinion, marijuana is not something that you should be doing all day, every day,
Yeah,
constantly,
just like alcohol.
or even just consistently. Yeah. It's not good to be, I forget who said it, dependent, but it's like marijuana basically makes you happy with being
bored.
lazy
Yes.
and bored. And
Makes
it's
you okay
not,
with being
and that's really
Yeah.
more about who you want to be in your life. And if you want to like do more things and get more stuff done, then you probably shouldn't smoke weed. However, it shouldn't be illegal,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be putting people behind bars just for that.
That's what it is, man. I feel like, you know, alcohol is inherently more dangerous when ingested in the same quantities that you
Yeah.
would, you know, if you, I don't know how you could do pound per pound.
Yeah.
Can't do pound for pound. But
Yeah.
I think that I'd much rather want to be next to somebody that just smoked a joint rather than someone that just faced a fifth of tequila.
Yeah.
You ever
I
been
mean, that's
around?
a lot, but yeah.
I mean, you ever been
Still.
around, like, dude, you ever been around somebody that was drinking and you're sober and you're
Yeah.
just like, or you're the designated
Oh, yeah,
driver,
it's
you're
annoying.
like, I hate this more than anything. And that's why bartenders, like, come to be such dicks, I feel
Yeah.
like, because they're just dealing with these same rowdy groups. Like, if you grew up in a college town and you're like,
Yep.
you're dealing with these kids over and over again, and you're like, just, I hate them.
Yep.
But again, if they're passing joints, they'll probably be like, you got any food back there? You know what I mean? It's just like, and now for some reason they feel a little bit more, you know, generous, you know, with their
Oh,
tips,
yeah.
you know, that type of stuff, instead of wanting to fight you because you
Yeah.
don't want to serve them because they're like, I'm driving home right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't serve you. And it's like, well, I'm going to kill you then. So
Well, they'll kill somebody.
they'll kill one way or another.
Yeah. Sadly.
But yeah, man, going back to hemp, and I think Big Lumber at the time was lobbying in government to,
Yeah.
you know, try and villainize it and made all that propaganda. And I am glad that, you know, it is now being more researched clinically.
Right.
And even people with Parkinson's, man, I've seen promising things about that, ingesting it when people have those uncontrollable tremors,
Yeah.
instead of taking some heavy duty, you know, sedatives, essentially is what they are, you know, to let them eat something or take a tincture and then they stop shaking a little bit less,
Yeah.
and they're able to have a better quality. I'm all for it, man. I'm definitely all for it. I think that, like we were saying, everything in moderation. Don't get behind the wheel after
Yeah.
ingesting it, even though everyone's on coffee. It's like, I'm about to get behind the wheel. Let's do this. And it's even me, man, driving on coffee. I'm definitely more, you know, like, idiot. Like, you know, I get more ramped
Road
up.
rage.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I feel like it definitely can,
Yeah.
you know, have that effect on you. But yes, socially, culturally, we've made rules. We've made certain rules, Blake. Like, one documentary that I think that everyone out there should watch. I'm not sure if you have yourself. It's How to Change Your Mind. It's
I don't
on.
think I have.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
And they cover a couple different things. Something that we didn't talk about is psilocybin.
Yeah.
It's the active ingredient, like in magic mushrooms.
Right.
And magic mushrooms, it's such an interesting history. It really dives deep into it. And I, again, highly recommend it. But the main guy that started this movement, his name is Michael Pollan. I've listened to multiple podcasts where he's a guest on it.
Yeah.
And he really gives some insight about things that, you know, you wouldn't think about. And this guy with his gun and his coffee.
You keep talking about the caffeine. It's
just like licking your lips. You're like, oh, it's just so good once it hits your lips. But he really goes into it, and he actually talks about, out of all, he's tried a lot of different drugs. He's not a drug addict by any means. He's like a PhD. He's like a legit, like, you know, literary figure, like published many books, made documentaries.
Right.
And he said that of all the things that he's ever taken, the hardest thing for him to stop taking, caffeine. He said that sucked. He was like, I've never felt worse when coming off
But, you know,
of that.
I think part of that might just be because it's so culturally accepted, too. You
That's-
know what I mean?
And that's what, yeah, man. Because
Like, if everybody was doing heroin, which that'd be a crazy world. But, like, let's just say
Not much
let's
would
say
get
everybody was
done.
doing it, but they were also functional.
Yeah.
it'd be easier for you to be like, well, it's just a little bit of H, no big deal.
It's a little bit H.
No big deal.
A little bit H.
But it's just like caffeine, like coffee. Like everybody's literally like, probably like 80% of America, maybe.
Oh,
I don't know.
I would even
crazy
say more
amount.
than that.
2/3 to 90% of America drinks some sort of caffeine.
Your parents at home probably
So.
drink a cup of coffee to go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's the funny part about it. Like I know my mom does.
Yeah.
Mom's like, oh God, what a long day. Let me put a cup of coffee on and just
Yeah.
hit the sack. But yeah, man. We've made rules. It's like alcohol, for example. It's like, okay, you can't drink before 5, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to have a drink every night, every other night, or the weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's certain things that we as a society has said, you know what, I'm okay with that being a thing as long as we kind of, put the reins on it.
Yeah.
Or don't drink and drive, right? That's back in the day, it was like they pulled you over, you were shit-faced. They were like, Jim, again? Come on.
But a lot
buddy.
of times that was probably because they're like way out in the boons and like what are they going to hit other than like a tree?
Well, for sure.
But you get more concentric or more populated areas, then drinking and driving becomes obviously more dangerous to people around you.
Of course.
So that's why it's important, because it's like that distinction between, it's kind of like a lot of what America is founded on is you can do pretty much whatever you want, but do not infringe upon other people's rights. So drinking and driving is a really good example of like an extremely high propensity to infringe upon someone's right to life is so high that's why they stop someone, or that's why I used to think like my old libertarian mind was like, nah, like you should be able to drink and drive. Not that I would endorse that, but you should be allowed to, because we're in America. It's freedom, right? And I never really have, by the way. But I'm just saying, like,
Disclaimer.
My old libertarian mind was like, everything you should be free to do that. But again, when you are infringing upon someone else's rights, then it should not be allowed. Simple as that. So as long as you take a drug, so like even you talking about THC, like THC or marijuana could and should be legal. However, if you smoke and then drive, it should be the same type of standard of drinking and driving. Now it's a lot harder to test for it. I know that.
I was going to say that the only difficult thing with that is that like the government has decided, you know what? 3 beers. That's all you're allowed. You can drink.
Yeah, 3 is what is.
I mean, it depends. It depends on your body weight. Right?
No, I know.
So like it's so subjective.
But that's about how much an average person will drink,
Just
and
about,
that's
but 3 beers for a tiny little woman, might get her schwasted.
Yeah.
But for you and I, 3 beers might be right at that cusp. For 3 beers for a big polar bear of a man, I used to go to college with some guys that they used to eat the beer can itself. They just crunch it, and
that doesn't sound safe.
It wasn't, but they did it now. So, but I'm trying to say, like, those 3 beers might just tickle them. Like Andre the Giant, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he would have 72 beers in an hour just to feel something.
Yeah.
So, but when you have THC, it's like, how can you say, all right, all right, how many joints you smoke?
Yeah.
Choose the magic
but
number.
See, I think it's important to where you could just be like, obviously, a lot of people hate cops, but to the cops' discretion, if you were being erratic on the road, simple as that, that's what it is. You were erratic on the road, that's the ticket, something like that.
That's very subjective.
Yeah, but what's the alternative? Let everybody do everything all the time?
I feel like maybe like oral. I know they do oral tests. They do like the Q-tip in the mouth, and then they'll test for it. The only problem is that can like come back positive for up to like 48 hours. Yeah. So it's like, if you if you're in a legal state and you smoked 2 days ago and then you're coming back from work.
Oh yeah.
And then they're just like.
But see, that's why I think those tests should because let's say that you were extremely functional and you smoked a lot. You smoke something, then you go to work, which is a terrible idea. Never do that.
Never do that.
That's weird that people even do that.
Why would you even do that?
Let's say you did, or let's say you're going back home, whatever. But if you are perfectly fine on the road, then that's it. End of story. But if you are, let's say, being a disturbance or being unsafe on the road, and then they pull you over, then they think, okay, I think this person has some THC in their system. It doesn't matter because they were swerving all over.
What if you just worked a 13-hour shift and you did 7 in a row and you work night shift?
Oh yeah.
Right?
But that's the same thing. If you were, let's say, breaking the law by, let's say, swerving a lot and then you almost hit someone. I mean, I don't know if that's literally the law, but let's just say that is a ticketable offense. Then that's it. End of story.
Got you.
It doesn't matter what you were doing. What matters is that you were the action on the road.
Okay.
But just simple thoughts.
No, I hear you. I hear you. It's tough to draw the line really when it comes to that. I personally, I can't even get into that because it really comes down to, I wish they had a more specific test, and I feel like in the future they will, because so many people take edibles now and stuff like that. It should be like something that tests for maybe up to like, I don't know, 4 hours, 6 hours, something like that within driving. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I just think it's gonna be really hard. Like, I don't know. I mean, well, it depends. Science is always evolving.
I was about to say, we put a man on the moon in 69, right? So I think if we really put our top men on it, top men, we'd be able to figure it out. But moving along, I think another thing that we talk about culturally that, and we touched on it already, smoking cigarettes. I feel like we joke about this, but it's like 4 out of 5 dentists recommend you smoke a cigarette after you have your meal. Yeah. And it's like that fifth dentist is laughing to the bank right now. He's like, you fools, I told you for years.
Yeah.
But look how slow it was to change. My grandfather's generation, your grandfather's generation, if you didn't smoke cigarettes, you were probably considered, one of those.
Not a real man.
You're not a real man. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, and it's just a shame that it went from, like, even children, man. Like, they used to watch their pappy smoking, and they'd be like, as soon as they were old enough to walk and go to the coal mines, like their dads would condition their lungs for the conditions. They would be like, all right, I'm going to teach you how to roll up, just your own cigarette. Yeah. And listen. It's just kind of crazy how we went from that to now. If you see your kid smoking cigarettes, like forget about it.
It's crazy. Well, what's interesting is that, like, we were talking about this just before we even started the podcast, was basically like, I don't really know how it happened, but I mean, ask any 15-year-old what they think about cigarettes, and they're like, that's disgusting.
Yes.
And I mean, like, I said the same thing when I was 15, but it's just different, like that. Like, it seems like we're going to be in a much better world without cigarettes going forward. I mean, it's actually just, it's wild to me. Like, I don't even know what the messaging was. Maybe it's just everybody just, like, hammering that information. Just like
Joe Camel. I mean, look, for a while there was a Camel. For a lot of our viewers probably. I don't know if you're young enough or old enough, whatever. But Joe Camel. He was Camel's, spokesperson. Yeah. It was a camel with black sunglasses.
He was super cool.
We'll edit Joe Camel right here with us. Hey, Joe.
Oh my God.
Hey, Joe. But he had a leather jacket, and
then once they got rid of him off of the packaging,
right,
fell off the cliff.
That's it.
We just got to bring Joe Camel back.
We got to bring Joe Camel back.
All right.
Joe, I want to do a little interview with Joe. Yeah. It's just like he's just a chain smoker. He's like they did me dirty.
So, and then on top of that, we have, so cigarettes are now looked less favorable upon.
Yes.
Which is good. Mm-hmm. But we also have alcohol, which I don't know is necessarily looked better or worse upon now, but we can also talk about just the fact that going into the third subject is how governments react, so culture is different from government and how they react, but how government has reacted. So alcohol, really good example. Obviously, we had an actual constitutional amendment to prohibit the sale and consumption of alcohol, which is pretty insane from our minds. Right. Obviously, I'm sure at the time it was like you're hearing all this information about.
And the year that it started, not to cut you off, Blake, but I feel like it's important. 1920 to 1933. You said 13 years this lasted, but I think it's also important to note that men came back from World War I, tired, limbs missing, and they just wanted a cold beer.
They had 3 good years to drink some beer, and then they were like,
and they come back and it's just like, no, sorry, you're not grandfather. I think you should have at least been like grandfathered in.
That would have been a good little sub.
That's what I'm trying to say. But to make an amendment, bro, you know how tough it is to get an amendment passed, and they passed an amendment for this. But Blake is the PhD here. Let's hear about it.
I guess I like history, but I think it's important to just kind of talk about how you had a prohibition of a certain product. Now, is this product bad for you? Yes, obviously, yes. However, when the government tries to dictate morality, meaning they're trying to fix people's social tendencies, inevitably what happens is a black market is created for the said product, because this is a paradigm that cannot be shifted. People will forever, for the rest of time, want alcohol. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about this. from its inception to now, and in the future, people will want alcohol. And it's just like, imagine if the government decided to ban the internet. Do you think that the internet would be down for more than like an hour?
Absolutely
No.
not.
It would immediately start back up on different little servers, and people would have access to it. So just think about it this way. It's just as powerful as the internet in terms of people wants. Like, people desire, not everybody, but a lot of people desire this product. So what happens is, if you ban some sort of product or service and it is culturally demanded, then what's going to happen is a black market starts to create itself.
Mm-hmm.
So gangs start to realize there's a lot of more money because there's more danger in providing this product.
Cartel, mob.
And so immediately you get mobs, gangs, cartels. They're going to try to profit on this, because now they're like, well, we're going to sell you this bottle, which used to be, when it was legal, let's say $2, now it's going to be $20.
Yeah.
So not only are you punishing, like, you're just punishing a whole bunch of law-abiding citizens that were, now they're criminals, but in prohibition world, but you're creating a lot of danger and also violence for gang-on-gang relations, or retaliation, stuff like that. So,
and also you were talking about the ancient Egyptians with their death slaves. I mean, workers.
Yes.
But they were just satiated enough, and it boosted their morale.
Yeah.
And I feel like the government, kind of took notice after a while. They got so much backlash from prohibition.
American government.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm sure both, right? but the Egyptian government did some other messed up things.
There's like one dude.
Just one guy. He was called a pharaoh.
Yeah.
But
that's exactly how it's. Yep.
But in reality, I feel like the government realized also that, like, you need to satiate the masses with some mind-altering substances.
Yeah.
And that's why...
Because we demanded it.
We demanded it. And that's why they were like, all right, listen, we got to give them something, otherwise they're going to overthrow us.
Yeah.
And things got violent, like you just said. Al Capone, that whole shindig, The Great Gatsby. That's another thing they talk about. It's very, like, sprinkled in there. You don't really get it as you're reading. I read it when I was like 13.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy is just, he's crying over his ex-girl. It's a lot of bullshit. I don't get it. But you come to realize, what he was doing. He was a bootlegger.
Yeah.
Right? And bootlegging, just can you explain where the term bootlegging came from?
Yeah. So that was literally just, like, it's very literal, where women would put bottles in their boots, or not necessarily in their boots, but like next to their boots, like in these very large pants. Yeah. And then that's how they would smuggle things in and out of clubs.
Having a hollow leg.
Yeah.
Don't forget about the hollow leg.
Yeah.
They would literally just, peg leg, right?
So if you didn't know where the word or term bootleg came from, hopefully you did, but
yes.
if you didn't.
I mean, is our audience that educated? I hope.
So.
I hope.
I'd imagine. I feel like everybody learned this in like 7th grade.
It's in one of the textbooks. Yeah. One of them.
It's a fun little factoid.
It's U.S. history, the good stuff. But yeah, man. So black markets, and even we were talking about a black market. A little microcosm of it is where we're Tom Segura's bit about going into the back of somebody's car.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, you put yourself in danger.
Oh yeah.
Now like I said, you walk into the dispensary and they're just like, welcome, how are you?
Yeah,
let's get high together. and it's just a different vibe, because the government again realized that there's money to be made here.
Yeah.
Right. And if there's money to be made, the government's going to have its paws on it.
And the thing is that just because something is legal doesn't necessarily means that either the government or anybody else around you endorses that. Nobody is well, there's certainly some people, but generally speaking, if something is now, let's say, legal, that doesn't mean that everybody's like, yay, now we're all going to use it.
Yeah.
Just to quote, just someone, Ron Paul, he was basically stating to an entire Republican crowd, he was like, if heroin was legal today, how many people would take it?
Yeah, seriously.
How many people would do it right now?
That's a really
today?
Good question.
And nobody said anything, obviously. And I'm sure there's probably at least one person who'd be like, oh, because it's legal now I'll do it? Sure. If something were, let's say, legalized, let's say something really hard like heroin. I got a heroin tick apparently.
It's
I just gotta say it. I just gotta say it.
Itching.
But if
go look for track marks
if let's say heroin was legal today, there would be probably a small tick, or probably a decent tick of people using it just to try it out. Which is, don't do that. That's crazy.
They say like just once.
But it would normalize, and it would probably, if anything, hopefully decreased down under to its current use right now, because it takes away the stigma of being unlawful and cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been several different like governments who have tried legalizing a lot of drugs, but a lot of problems that they incur is that they don't really open up or try to have rehab centers ready to go for everybody. And it's not like I'm saying that we should all dump 20% of our income to try to fix the current
addiction problem
in the entire country, because that probably won't work. But there's got to be some sort of county or local or even like city or maybe even state like programs to just be like, it's legal, but we don't want you to use it, so please come to our centers and try to wean off or figure something out.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of those. I feel like California has got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Where, like, I know the argument can be made, like, a lot of people will get pissed off that their tax dollars are going to, like, safe shoot-up spots.
Yeah.
Come down here if you want to shoot it up.
And a lot of the problems with, like, these legalize the drug program and then now we're going to open up like centers for you, is that a lot of the times it feels like and it seems like it's a money laundering program for the government, where they're going to be able to tax you now, let's say 1% or 2% more of your income, and then we're going to be like, all right, now we're going to open up all these centers, see, this is so great, but nothing really gets fixed.
Well, that's exactly
so it seems like it's disingenuous. It doesn't seem right. And so that's why it should be maybe not state, maybe not even city, but like some sort of county thing where it's like, these are the centers that we have open and it's for this county only and the county residents only. And that way it's more like culturally like, yes, this is Jim going to there. And
it's more of a community type thing.
Yeah, it's less about like just dumping a whole bunch of money into it, just one crazy big program.
And that begs the question, why is like rehab out in California? Like, you hear like, one of the Jenners, one of the Kardashians, it's like, I was addicted to everything, and I went to Malibu and I spent $6.8 million a day, and now I feel better until tomorrow when I will relapse. And I feel like that is another predatory aspect of it. Is addiction is a very complicated thing, man.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's so difficult to see somebody you love get hooked on whatever, and then it's like you come to not be able to trust that person.
Yeah.
And it's like the person might not want to change, and they're just wrapped up so deep into it that once you also say, yo, the only way to get clean is to give $100,000 to this agency, and you're not even sure if it's going to work.
Yeah.
See, that's like what perpetuates it. It's that that I don't got the money to get off it. I got $5 to get high. You're just looking for the next fix.
Yeah.
And that's what's scary about, getting caught up in drugs. And that's why we talk about moderation. And it doesn't necessarily just need to be heroin. I know that it's his thing. He loves it. Talking about it, not ingesting it. But it really, when you boil it down to it, like I feel for people in that situation. I genuinely do, because you're addicted to something out there. You could say that you're not, but you're addicted to something. Going to the gym, eating vegan, eating healthy, organic, hiking, being outside, anything that you do to the point where it's occupying your entire life. Yeah. It is an addiction. But the only problem with those, with the actual, like, just in heroin or anything that's a little bit more hard, meth is another big thing that is rampant through this country right now, man. One of the newest things that we're seeing out on the street, besides fentanyl, which is another.
Well, we're not physically seeing it because I'm not walking around those streets.
We're not walking in Philadelphia, but there is something that Blake really wanted to talk about.
I just think this drug is just so amazing, and not in a good way. Like, I'm truly amazed that someone was like, let's put all of these together. So that new drug is apparently called Tranq. TRANQ. Yes. So it's a mass-produced Chinese drug called xylazine, I believe, and that is for horse tranquilizer. So that's already just outright terrible. Then they're like, you know what? Let's sprinkle a little fentanyl in it.
A little Salt Bay action.
They're going to sprinkle a little bit of meth. Then on top of that, just a little cherry on top. They're going to put some coke in there as well.
Have you ever seen Get Him to the
That's
Greek?
Unbelievable. Yes, I have.
It's a Jeffrey.
Yeah,
that's basically what you're describing right now. How do you ingest it though? Is it intravenous?
I don't. No, I think it is. Yeah, it's a liquid that is intravenous.
Boiled.
But the crazy thing about this is that the thing is so potent and so bad for the human body. Obviously, I mean, almost all these drugs are relatively extremely bad, but this one is so bad that it's like the second you inject it, it's basically turning that flesh around that to rotting flesh immediately. It's
necrotizing.
killing everything. And it's like, I can't believe somebody's sick mind is like, Trank sounds great. I love the side effects. I get really high. I don't need my leg anymore. We're good.
Is that the thing where they're just kind of like, they're kind of just like hovering over?
But this is kind of what I was.
No, but I'm saying, like, I've seen a lot of videos, like in Philly, like the streets of Philly.
I don't know
like
what
in particular.
All on. We should do a survey.
But it
we should go ask them
put
what
the,
they
put the pen in their hand and check a box for them.
Yeah, it's just insane. But it's interesting because it's like kind of when you were talking about addiction, just in general. I like to think about this. Really stupid quote that my friend made, which is a really smart guy, but he was like 18 and I was 18.
Oh, so deep at the time,
Ben,
I'm sure.
if you're out there watching this video a year from now or even now, what's up? Love you, man.
Hey, Ben.
But he said, and I think this is it's very insightful, but the way he phrased it, I was like, what? But he said, people don't like to smoke cigarettes. They like to smoke about cigarettes. And I was like, what? but after a while he had to explain it, and he meant that the reason that someone smokes cigarettes or have an addiction at all is because of something else is happening in their life that they want to choose some sort of substance to fix or fill the hole.
Yes.
And now I think it's pretty it's an insightful thought. And
can you say the quote again?
People don't like to smoke cigarettes, they like to smoke about cigarettes. I was like I get what you're saying. It's just I feel like it could have been delivered in a more impactful way.
Ben, if you're watching this, just come up with a different way to say that, because I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
but it could be a little bit more
delivered
prolific.
better. Yeah. But either way, is the conversation was great because it made sense. We both smoked, so I don't know what my problem would have been, but either way, it was interesting because there's a lot of people who, like they go to the hospital, they get, let's say they get in a car wreck. They go to the hospital. They're not even aware, but now they're being given fentanyl. That's the type of person who gets tricked into being addicted. I mean, I wouldn't say tricked into, but that's an unfortunate circumstance. But that's not a lot of the people. A lot of the people who have addictions to like fentanyl, they just want it. And so that's the problem. That's the type of person that it's like, what is it that is making you want this substance? True. Not your addiction is the only problem. It's more of a mental problem. Like, why do you need to escape that badly?
I will tell you that my wife and I, we often joke. Sometimes we say I gotta quiet the demons in my head. But it's the truth.
Yeah.
If you're feeling stressed, it could be something that happened to you a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it could leave you susceptible to breaking down emotionally, mentally, physically.
Oh, yeah.
When you have something sprinkled on top, it could be just this to cake, and you just need layered, and it takes one more flush of that toilet to just right on top of you to be like, I gotta do X, Y, and Z to chill out again. And that's why. And speaking of this, when we want to dive deeper into the shit pile, if you really want to get to that OG shit at the bottom, I highly suggest that you get some therapy. All right, because you can try filling that hole, but ultimately, I think the best way to fill the hole is by going down to the foundation of it and realizing why you don't have a steady piece of bedrock to build up from.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I think it's easy for us to think like, if I truly had, no shelter, no girlfriend, no dog, no,
podcast
ability to video game or no podcast, like I could understand like I want to get away from the nothingness that I have.
Yeah.
But the reason that I don't even like think about the fact that I would like be addicted to something like hard, at least, is that I have a good life. I don't need to ruin that.
Yeah.
But if a lot of people don't have good lives to begin with, that's why they're going to start.
Yeah.
And so maybe it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the first podcast, is like having more testosterone, working out, doing awesome things, like have a goal, like focus on what you want to do in your life, and hopefully that can fix a lot of addiction problems without even talking about the hard drugs that you are doing right now. It's like, no, let's fix your life, and then we'll,
Yeah, it's kind of like, and I say it a million times, putting a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches.
Right.
It's going to keep bleeding.
Yeah.
You're going to keep throwing out that Band-Aid. You're going to rip off those hairs that are attached to it. It's going to hurt, and it's not going to hurt as much as those stitches or staples.
Yeah.
And
that's you as a healthcare professional just trying to upselling and doing your job.
Just support your local medical corporation. Do it now. Hurt your foot.
Yeah.
Just get cancer. Go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Support us. Please don't do any of those things. It's bad. But yeah, man, I really think that at the end of the day, just to drive it all home, because we do got to wrap this puppy up. Mm-hmm. I think that one, reach out to people around you, and if people are telling you you have a problem with something, and they're close to you and they really care about you, take their word for it. 2, everything in moderation.
Yes.
Everything, literally everything.
Just a tiny bit.
Just a little
tiny bit of H.
No.
Super small.
No, it's not what the point was. He's just hooked on the stuff. I can't help him.
Talking about it.
This is me introducing, like, let me help you. That was the second part of it. I also hope that they learn some history from this, and also just getting your mind thinking about the next time you take a sip of that coffee, think that that's not you. That's an altered conscious
version of you.
Yeah. Right? So try going a day without coffee. Try going 2 days without it. 3 even. Test yourself. Come back to it and see the difference in yourself after a week. Yeah. Try it. What do you got to lose? Except your mind. But in reality, like, those are my closing thoughts. Any closing thoughts on your end?
You hit it. That's pretty much exactly it.
I hit it right on there.
Just like and subscribe if you enjoy this podcast.
Please do.
Us rambling about things that we don't know too much about, but we like to think that we do.
Yes, and we hope that if we start the conversation with us barely knowing anything, that it'll make you want to learn a little bit more.
Yep.
And if you're our close family and friends that still haven't listened to it, just, like, come on, man. Come on. It hurts. It really hurts. Love you guys. See you on the next cast.
Thanks, guys. Bye.